Oh, hey, how's everyone? How is everyone doing? I'm
Doing good, man.
um, wish us luck, because we got a lot to unpack here.
Just want to go. Do we got stuff that we got to wrap up, or something not wrap up? Talk about.
Go through the roster, kind of highlight some moves that happen, and then we'll kind of talk about the team, I guess, and general thoughts, all that good stuff, I guess. All right, so
Way to do it, right?
yeah, we're gonna start in 2K's chronological order. So that means we're starting off with the Philadelphia 76ers. And for this team, some of their highlight moves that we can talk about is they signed Al Horford to a 4-year deal. They re-signed Tobias Harris to a 5-year max contract.
Yeah, that Tobias Harris move, I didn't expect that. I did not see that happening. I thought he was going to move elsewhere because of how he's been for the team. You know, he's a really good shooter, and you know, see.
Yep, Tobias Harris getting that payday. They did a sign and trade with the Miami Heat and a couple other teams with Jimmy Butler involved, and they were able to get Josh Richardson out of that. And that's really about it. It's really about it.
But I mean, that's still good. You know, they still got players. I mean, it wasn't the best offseason, but we still got stuff done, and isn't that what you're supposed to do during the offseason?
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on the 76ers team, though? Like, are they better than last year's 76ers team?
See, that's a hard argument. When you think of the 76ers from last year, everybody lacked on their bench. And, you know, now that, you know, you could say that they got a little bit better, but they lost Jimmy Butler, and, you know, people have mixed opinions on Butler. Some think he's a ball hog, some think, you know, some say that he makes it up on the court. Overall, Jimmy Butler was still a big loss, whether you want to admit it. I mean, rather you like him or not, or rather you like the team or not. So, I mean, there's obviously going to be things to think about when it comes to that. But you know, you could say that they got better because of what they got, say for the certain sign and trade and stuff. But still, Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, if you get what I'm saying.
I do get what you're saying. In my personal opinion, I don't think this team got better or worse. I think they just made a lateral move.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost JJ Redick and they lost Jimmy Butler. What did they do? Get Al Horford and Josh Richardson. It doesn't influence whether I think they'll lose or win more games. One big loss that no one is talking about for this team, actually two, is arguably their two best pieces off of their bench. TJ McConnell, their backup point guard, and Boban Marjanovic, their backup center. And the question is, who's going to fill in those roles? Because they didn't sign any, like, key backups. I mean, yeah, they brought in a couple of depth guys, but we'll have to see if they can step up and increase the bench production, or if they're just going to be two bodies you throw out there.
So are you saying that their bench possibly got worse?
Their bench got worse, but as a team, overall, I think they just basically stayed the same. I think they have more of a balanced starting five, I guess you could say. But, I mean, if someone gets in foul trouble, if someone gets hurt, God forbid, but it's a long season, it happens, who are you going to go to?
You can always sign a free agent, but there's a reason they're still a free agent at that point of the season.
Sign Melo. Sign Carmelo, baby.
Huh? Yeah.
Alright, I guess we'll move on to the next team, but I will have one more question. What's the ceiling for this team?
Possibly. Okay, I could say maybe a 6th seed, barely making the playoffs. First round exit, maybe second round exit. I mean, that's as high as I can see them, and that's being generous because of how much other teams got better, which we'll talk about. But you know how I am. I try to be nice. I don't, and that's definitely me being nice.
All right, I guess for me, just for fun, I mean, these aren't like official predictions, but I think I'd give them the 5th seed, and I would probably say a second round exit.
Yeah, see?
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll just have to see if they're 2 stars, or they're 2 young stars, let me rephrase that. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, we'll see if they can take the next step.
Yeah, that's a good little question, man.
Alright, on to the... not the team that won the East, but the team that had the most wins in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks. They're key free agents. They re-signed Chris Middleton to a 5-year max. They re-signed Brook Lopez to a 4-year, $52 million deal. They brought back George Hill on a restructured contract. And they brought in Wesley Matthews on a 1-year minimum. That's about all of their major moves as a franchise.
See, like again, was not a big off season for them, but you know they're keeping players, and if keeping players is, if everything works out, it's going to get them to the same situation they got to. Possible late into the playoffs, anything. So I'm not going to hate on the re-signs. Obviously, every team I feel like needs to get free agents to get better, or have a really good draft. But they're a really good pickup. They're good keeps, you could say.
Yeah, speaking of keeps, one player that they weren't able to keep, and I think it's going to hurt this team a little bit because of how it was a tough decision, because they had Chris Middleton and his contract up, and Brook Lopez, and the team knew that they were only going to bring back 2 of the 3. I think they made the right decision as a team, but it is a hell of a loss that ends up being someone else's gain. Yeah,
I didn't even think of it that way. See, as everybody knows, you're the basketball guy, and I'm trying to learn some things. You guess you could say.
Don't belittle yourself, Aaron. You're getting there. Don't belittle yourself.
Thanks, JJ.
And similar to what we asked about the 76ers, it's going to be the question for all 30 teams. What is the Milwaukee Bucks ceiling as a team with this current constructed roster?
I mean, with all them re-signs, again, late, not even again, I didn't say that with them, late playoffs, man. That team's really good enough. Expect Giannis to get a super max next summer. You got a lot of stuff going for you with that team. They kept most of the people that got them to the late playoffs, so why not trust my instinct to say late playoffs again,
Alright, so like conference finals or second round? What do you mean by late playoffs?
You can even say that, conference finals, sure. I'm confident with that.
Alright, for me, I like this team. You know what? I don't know exactly how they'll be seeded. I think for now I'll give them the 2 seed. Because they did keep their core together. They did lose 1 player from their core, but unlike a lot of teams, they kept it together. So I'll give them the 2nd seed for that.
Okay.
This is where
you're thinking a little bit like that.
So this is where it gets interesting. Do I think there'll be a second round elimination, or do I think there'll be a conference finals team? I think for now I'll say they're a conference finals team because they have the experience playing together. And that's going to matter, but can they get over that hump? Can they get to the finals? I don't think so right now. They're missing something. I don't know what it is. I think they're just missing something.
Yeah, probably that free agent maybe. You never know. Like maybe that big free agent, or that middle free agent signing that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, they're missing something. I don't know exactly what it is. But they just need, I don't know. I think they need that spark off the bench. They have good bench depth, but not every team has like a Lou Williams and a Montrezl Harrell, but they're missing something.
Yeah.
Alright, next, a fun young team. This should be interesting. The Chicago Bulls. They are bringing in some veteran players, one of them being Thaddeus Young on a 3-year, $41 million deal. And they're bringing in backup point guard from Washington, Thomas Satoransky, on a 3-year, $30 million deal. Should
Which
we?
team are we talking about? My bad.
The Chicago Bulls. Should we include draft picks in this or no? Like people they drafted.
If it's a big draft pick, yes, I'm down.
All right, Kobe White. They drafted him at number 7 overall. He's been balling in the summer league, but you know, summer league depends on how much you put stock into it. But that was their big draft pick at number 7, Kobe White, the guard from North Carolina.
See the Bulls? You know how I'm trying to get into basketball a little bit more. I have a special way to do it. We'll talk about that. You know, just like I remember right when I was learning about the NFL and stuff. It's really cool to get to know certain rosters and certain players that I wouldn't know of as a average or as a below average fan, you know?
Yeah, this Bulls team is really interesting. I mean, I'll try to speak more on the younger teams, I guess you could say, because I don't think the Bulls are trash. They were like the 10th seed last year, I think, but as a young roster with a lot of injuries and no superstar, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I do think there's a chance they could possibly steal the 8th seed in the East, only because the bottom half of the East are really not sure. Like, obviously, we know who the top dogs are going to be, but we're not sure about that bottom half. So I will give this young Bulls team a chance to make the 8th seed. I'm not going to say they'll make it. I'm just going to give them a chance because you never know what could happen at the end of the season. But they have a good roster.
See,
I like that they brought in veterans.
I'm gonna try to get in. I'm gonna try to learn a little bit more about them. I haven't really got to them yet.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they brought in some veterans. You know, Thaddeus Young's a good locker room guy, and he can get you a bucket. This team is constructed nicely. I don't think it's oversaturated with young players, but you know, we'll just have to wait and see. I think a fully healthy season with these guys could be pretty good. And now we go from one. Oh, I don't know. Would you consider this team young? I don't know. Let's just talk about it. The leftovers from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Notable free agency stuff. They didn't really do much in free agency, but they did draft Derek. He is rehabbing from injury, so we haven't really seen him play. But what we have seen, he does look pretty good. In terms of free agency, they haven't really done anything. They took a couple flyers on some guys late in the first round, guys that I think have a chance to be good. We'll see. But Dylan Windler from Belmont, one of the better three-point shooters in the country. And then Kevin Porter Jr. has some upside. We'll see if he makes the final roster.
Okay.
So, yeah, obviously I'm not predicting this team to make the playoffs, but just focus on establishing an identity. You're still in that post-LeBron era, and, you know, you have Kevin Love still on this team. Could he be traded at the deadline? Possibly. Could he be traded before the regular season? Possibly. But they need to focus on building around Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. And we'll see, once they get off all these contracts, where they go from there.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to see what Colin Sexton can do. He's had a little bit now to show, but I think he can do.
Yeah, he's coming off a good rookie year as well. We'll see if he can up his scoring to 20 points per game. He did average 17 last year. We'll see how it goes for him. Alright, now things are about to pick up. We got the Boston Celtics here. Of course, we know their big moves. They brought in Kemba Walker on a 4-year, $141 million contract. Enes Kanter, they brought on a 1-year deal with a player option at the end, I believe. They did have an intriguing draft. I'll go over like 2 of their picks. My 2 favorite ones. Romeo Langford at shooting guard. They got him at 14th overall from Indiana. And then in the second round, I thought this was a pretty good value pick. Carson Edwards, who has been looking pretty good in the Summer League. Once again, depends on how much you put into it. And of course, everyone's favorite, the Black Boban, Taco Fall.
I like him. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, man, he is fun. One thing that is gonna suck about him is he's not like...
Huh?
And it's weird because like it happens with like Boban as well, and a lot of really tall players, they don't move around the best. So like in fast break, yeah, they're not gonna chase down. They're not moving quick like that, but they are fun to watch. Get them out there in the third quarter, see what they can do. But how are you feeling about these Celtics, man?
See, the Celtics are a sneaky good team. I mean, obviously, that's. I hope you don't take that the wrong way. Like, obviously, but they got some decent things to work with. If you ask me that question about where I think their ceiling is, that would, I don't know. I probably couldn't answer that, because no matter what, teams are getting better, teams are getting worse. So. What do you think their ceiling is? I know we haven't asked that in a second because of the certain teams that we were going over.
Right. My ceiling for this team, and I'm going to ask you a question like that, but it won't be like that if you know what I'm saying. But my ceiling as of now, I'll give them the 3 seed. I think this team will end up being better than last year, like record-wise. Subjectively, we'll see if like, oh, is Kemba going to be better for this team than Kyrie? Like, we'll see how that pans out. Not saying it won't happen, but we'd have to watch and see, you know. Losing Al Horford is tough because he's one of those glue players for a team, a guy that kind of holds it all together. Cantor's a really good offensive rebounder and a good scorer, but as a defender, he's rough. And we'll have to see how Gordon Hayward comes back, you know, because last year was okay. Got to keep in mind the gruesome injury. And then their draft picks, I thought they had some good draft picks last year and this year. We'll see if they get playing time, what their role will be. But for now, I'm going to say 3 seed. And ceiling-wise, in terms of how far could they go, I'm going to just say potentially, not going to lock it in, but potentially Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay. Like I said, that's always fun to see about, especially that team. People know they lose players, and people get all crazy about, oh my God, they lost this person, they lost this guy, and in all reality, they end up being great.
Yeah, and I thought like they did a good job of replacing, you know, Kyrie, because obviously he's one of the better point guards in the league. Kemba Walker's not that far off. I know people like don't watch the Charlotte Hornets play, and I don't blame you, but you know, Kemba Walker is a great point guard. I mean, he's finally getting his recognition for it. He's only been doing it since he's come into the league, but better late than never, I suppose. Alright, next team. This team is going to be a fun one to discuss. We finally entered Los Angeles territory. The Clippers. Of course, let's just go over the 2 big ones, and then we'll fiddle around with the rest of it. So we got Kawhi Leonard making his free agency decision, 3 years, $103 million, with the 3rd year being a player option.
Wait, with that?
Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers.
Yeah, okay, my bad. I thought I heard you say something totally different.
Oh, no big deal. Paul George ends up getting traded to this team. We'll talk more about that later with Oklahoma City. Patrick Beverley ends up re-signing on a 3-year, $40 million contract. And that big, the trade for Hassan Whiteside, Maurice Harkless ends up coming over to the Clippers in like a 3-team trade, I guess. JaMychal Green ends up re-signing on a 2-year, $10 million deal. And they brought back Ivica Zubac, 4 years, $28 million. So this is an interesting one, man. What's your thoughts on those LA Clippers?
This is something. You know, I'm glad that they picked up. Or I'm not. You know, it was a really good pickup for them. to get Kawhi. Anybody that would have got him would have been considered a good pickup. Um, with Kawhi just on your team, you have a great opportunity to be really good, if you get what I'm saying. They got, that Paul George deal is going to be really nasty, and I'm sorry that
It's okay.
But it's going to be nasty, and it's going to be really fun to see that, and that definitely could be a late playoff team. Just with Kawhi, if he does what we know he can do, that's already a playoff team. Even probably without Kawhi, you could think about it. This with a lot of teams. But it's fun to sit there and think what's all going to happen and stuff. It's going to be really fun to watch. I see maybe a mid playoff, late playoff. It depends how Kawhi does. I don't really know if Kawhi can take the break that he wants to with that team. That's something that I'll let you answer, because you know how he likes to take games off for his health. No hate towards him for that, but I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Alright, so this Los Angeles Clippers team, they got a lot of things going for them. Number one, similar to another team we just talked about earlier on, the Milwaukee Bucks, they kept their core together. And that is always important for a team that showed strides last season entering the upcoming season. Of course, you're going to have to give something up for Paul George. So you gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari. I'll take Paul George over both of them too, if I'm a team that has championship aspirations. And then the cherry on top, of course, Kawhi Leonard, who fooled the entire NBA media and just media in general about, oh, it's a 99% chance he's going here, or he's going back to Toronto. Kawhi Leonard said, psych, I'm taking my talents to the other LA team, who everyone's going to have to take serious now. Off the bench, they still got Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, and similar to the other LA team, the LA Lakers, they have a lot of starting lineup flexibility. They can run different starting lineups on any given night depending on the matchup. In terms of their ceiling, it's interesting. In the West, it's very interesting because it depends on the matchups. It's so easy to say, well, they might be a finals team. They might be a Western Conference finals team. But we've seen some crazier things happen. In terms of the Kawhi and the load management, taking 22 games off, he can afford to do it because now they have Paul George. So I think he has that working in his favor. All right.
My bad. Who are we talking about right now?
Oh, the next team? All right, I guess bye-bye Clippers. The Memphis Grizzlies.
I'm kidding.
Oh man, well, I mean, we'll see.
You answered the question about the how long?
How long what?
How long, or do you think it's okay for him to be able to take a break on this team?
Yeah, because they got Paul George. If they didn't have Paul George, it'd probably be a different answer.
Oh, okay.
And it's going to be the same answer for other teams that have a star player. If one star player is going to rest, just make sure the other one's playing. It's pretty simple. Now, if they both take a night off, I think they'd be fine, but you'd prefer to have one of those two on the court.
Yeah.
But the Memphis Grizzlies,
Okay.
I actually like the direction they're heading in. They re-signed Jonas Valanciunas, but that was early on in the process. 3 years, $45 million. They traded off Mike Conley, and they got Jay Crowder, Grayson Allen, and they also had Kyle Korver, who they ended up releasing the clear waivers or whatever. They made a trade for Josh Jackson. I'm trying to remember exactly what they gave up. It was like a weird trade. And then they also traded off Chandler Parsons' contract as well. So this is an interesting team. Also, of course, drafted John Morant, number 2 overall, and got a good value pick with Brandon Clark at pick 21. So this is an interesting team. Your thoughts, Aaron?
Jeffrey.
Aaron.
Right. Okay. Alright, okay. Alright, now real talk though. This is a team that I need to look into.
You do, you're right.
Yeah. So, your boy, you know, we got to be careful on what we do with the basketball stuff, because your boy is still trying. You know, he works a hard Applebee's schedule. He don't got time.
As of yesterday.
Hey, that was a long yesterday, okay?
It was, actually. Like, all jokes aside.
No, right. Okay, come on. I'm sitting here trying to ask you stuff that I would ask you off. Okay, you get what I'm going at with this, so.
Yes. Alright, I'll have a different question for you about Memphis. In terms of projections, excuse me, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. They're in that territory that the Atlanta Hawks were in 2 years ago, where they're just now starting the rebuild process. And I know it's got to be hard for Grizzlies fans, man. They moved off Marcus Gasol, Zach Randolph, and Mike Conley over the last, 2 or 3 seasons. So that grit and grind mentality that they had, it's out of the building. They're starting fresh. And to have Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Morant as the foundational pieces, I like it. And the question that I was going to ask about this team, I'll ask when we get later down the road, and you'll see why. But overall, I think they're just going to be a young team with a couple of veteran pieces that, you know, they're going to be fun to watch in the area. John Morant's going to be an interesting dude to follow throughout his career. And we'll just have to see from there, man. In 3 years, we'll see how much progress Memphis has made in the rebuild.
Yeah. Alright. Wait, what's that? Okay, here we go. The sponsor of this live stream, Applebee's. Eat fresh. Eat quality.
Eat fresh. Subway, where are your lawyers? You know what? Just for that, Applebee's, you better cut us a check.
What? You better cut us a check, dude. I'm going to my manager.
Big facts. Speaking of teams rebuilding, we got a very fun one here, the Atlanta Hawks, man. And I thought they had a really good offseason as well. They drafted DeAndre Hunter at number 4 overall when they ended up making that trade or whatever with the Pelicans and kind of with the Lakers in principle. They took a flyer on Jabari Parker, getting 2 years, $13 million for him. They made a trade with Evan Turner, bad contracts basically. This team did draft Cam Reddish at number 10 overall. You know, solid quality depth right there. Let's see, they made that trade, of course, for Chandler Parsons' contract. And then they were involved in that trade with the Warriors. They got rid of Amari Spellman for Damian Jones.
Which team? I get zoned out sometimes.
Amari Spellman was traded to the Warriors for Damian Jones in a second. So Damian Jones is now here with the Hawks. And yeah, that's basically their offseason summed up.
See, you know, the Hawks had an opportunity to have some really good picks this year, but the draft didn't fall in their odds.
Interesting.
All I'm saying is I would totally pay a ticket to go see Zion and win. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's tough considering they didn't have the number 1 pick to start off with.
If they The lottery, dude. Shit happens.
Yeah, the Pelicans went from like number 8 to number 1.
I know.
The Hawks.
That's crazy.
The Hawks got shafted.
NFL.
It'd be funny if they did. I would hate it, but it'd be funny if they did. Now you know how NBA fans feel. The Knicks had their hopes up, and we'll get to them later. But yeah, the Hawks, you know, I like the picks they made. You know, was it like the sexiest picks? No. Are you gonna go look for the highlight reels? Maybe. If you can get a bucket, if you can play, that's all I care about. I don't care about your highlight reel, man. Come out here and play. Show me what you got.
You won't make me cry with this wisdom, dude.
I'm sorry, man. I just gotta spit facts. The only time I don't is when I'm asleep.
But dream facts of that time.
Yeah. Anyway, this Hawks team is gonna be interesting. Similar to what I said about the Chicago Bulls. They might mess around and sneak in and get the 8 seed, man. If they can continue to grow on what they had last season, because they're in,
who they needed to.
Yeah, and you know, they're like I said, they're in a similar situation to the Bulls right now. Both teams kind of started their rebuilds around the same time. One of those two might get the 8 seed. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't rule it out.
That would be fun to watch, man. Especially from like an Atlanta perspective.
Yeah, I mean, living in the state, I mean, we got to go to some games, man. The only thing that sucks is like when the Lakers or the Clippers, any of the other big teams come to town, those tickets are going to be expensive. So we're going to have to go catch Atlanta versus Memphis. Anyway, Miami Heat. Let's talk about them. It sounds like their offseason may not be over, but maybe it is. I don't know. But
oh, God. What are you getting at?
We'll talk about that later. It involves another franchise down the road, but Jimmy Butler ends up signing a 4-year max contract with the Miami Heat. Unlike the people that don't like Jimmy Butler, I love it. Good job, Jimmy Buckets. Let's see. They drafted Tyler Hero at number 13 overall. That man is a bucket. What can I say? I mean, Summer League, his lowest scoring game has been 19 points. And he's actually been shooting it pretty well, which is always a good sign for a guy who has the reputation of being a shooter.
That's really good.
And they took on the Myers-Leonard contract in a trade where Hassan Whiteside went to the Trailblazers. But yeah, that's basically the construction of what happened with them in the offseason, and it may not be over. Like I said, we'll talk about it later.
Okay. Stop screaming at me, Dad.
Sorry, son.
Alright. But, you know, I like the team, dude. Just, you always gotta love your hometown. I don't care what you say. Even on the NFL side, you gotta have a little bit of light towards your hometown team. You have to.
Yeah, so you're living in Miami now. When did this happen?
I'm just fucking dude. Let me have fun, man.
Yeah. I'm not Davis, bro. I don't think Jimmy Graham's in Seattle.
That will go down as one of our great.
Yeah, man. Back in the archive, you know, be telling our grandkids. We had this fried friend named Davis. Yeah.
This fried friend.
Anyway, assuming that the Miami Heat keep their roster the way that they do, what is this team's ceiling?
Missing the playoffs, maybe barely missing the playoffs. Just because of how many other teams have gotten better. That's something that that's going to be talked about a lot today. It's just a lot. So many teams got better. This is a crazy free agency, and if you missed out, you missed out big time with this one.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm gonna go on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm gonna say they barely get in. I mean, if you're not getting better, I know a lot of teams did. But this team went from having no superstar to having Jimmy Butler. So I'm gonna give them a chance. Maybe because I'm higher on Jimmy Butler than most. Because
yeah.
I'm gonna say they get like the 7 seed. I can't see them cracking top 6 with their current roster.
Yeah, that's why I said barely missing, man. I wasn't trying to be mean. I mean, it's either they barely make it or they barely miss it. There ain't gonna be no. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you. Speaking of, well, this team, either way, won't be doing barely anything. Let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets, who are basically an expansion team. So they added Terry Rozier. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. They added Terry Rozier, 3 years, $58 million.
Player.
Oh yeah,
so worth it.
Facts, dude. They ended up drafting PJ Washington at number 12 overall. PJ. It correlates with Patrick James, our friend over there. Yeah, man. So tell me about this expansion team.
Well, if you didn't know what an expansion team was,
just look at their roster.
All right, we're gonna say it nicely. They're no good. Do you think they will? Do you think they're? How close do you think they're going to be, or would be, the worst record in the NBA? You think it's possible? You think it's close?
I would say in terms of the Eastern Conference, they'd have to be the favorite to have the worst record. No offense. No offense, but this roster.
You see this is why I don't like the lottery thing. It's because even if they did or whatever they got this season, you got to. If you were a bad team, you should be able to get a good player to get better. Not because the free agents obviously ain't going to want to go to you. So how are you supposed to get better when the lottery is not on your side? You see where I'm coming a little bit. That's all I need from you is a little bit of knowing what I'm or looking into my side.
I do get what you're saying about the lottery, but you do know why the lottery's in place, right?
Wait, what'd you say?
I said, I get what you're saying, 100%, trust me, but you do know why there's a lottery, right?
Actually, I could sit here and say not for the NBA. No, why? Is there a reason?
To prevent bad teams from intentionally tanking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I didn't know that's what you meant. I just don't. I still necessarily wouldn't agree with it.
I mean, I get it, but it's like the Knicks, right? What was their whole slogan? Tank for Zion. And they get Zion's sidekick. That's what you get for intentionally tanking.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe next time, try a little bit. Put some effort into sucking.
Yeah, it's just, how are you supposed to get better? If no free agents want to come to you. That's what I like to think of it.
I get that. I understand. But look at a team like the San Antonio Spurs, right? The Spurs, they're in San Antonio. I mean, what's to the Mexican border than any other team in the league? Not that part matters, but how did they get better? Drafting and making trades. There are other routes to getting better. They should look into taking one of those routes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, that's how the Spurs won 5 championships in 20 years. They didn't just, cry about not getting free agents. They did other things to get better. Instead of taking Jordan Hill over other great players in that draft, instead of taking Frank Ntilikina, they could have been better. The Knicks, anyway. For the Hornets, since that's who we're talking about, they do got some young players that are intriguing. All jokes aside, they got Malik Monk, Miles Bridges, PJ Washington. It'll be interesting because they're all wing players. We'll see if they can develop, what they'll be able to bring to the table. They also got players like Dwayne Bacon who could be okay. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, this team's a long way away. They basically got Terry Rozier for Kemba Walker. That's basically what happened.
Yeah.
So, poor Hornets, but you guys can make trades and just hope that the ping pong ball bounces your way, unfortunately. But let's get serious, man. This is a team that everybody needs to take serious. The Utah Jazz. Because they went out, they traded for Mike Conley. They signed Bojan Bogdanovic to a 4-year, $73 million deal. They brought in Jeff Green on a 1-year deal. They brought in Emmanuel Mudiay on a 1-year deal. And they brought in Ed Davis on a 2-year, $10 million contract. And yeah, that's basically what these guys got going for them.
What team would this be?
The Utah Jazz.
Interesting.
A team that everybody should be taking serious.
Yeah. You said the Utah Jazz?
Yep.
Well, you know, I like the team. Personally, what would I say? What would I say they're sitting to do? They could sneak into. They could be right. I don't know why I can't think of the proper term for it right now. But the game right before the championship, or the whatever you want to call it.
Oh, the conference finals.
Yeah. That they could be a game before that. You never know, dude. Those are the teams that you got to watch out for. You know, the sneaky. You got really good players on. You're probably thinking crazy. Or I don't know how you feel about it personally, so I'm not gonna. But I like they. I'm trying to think. You like them, obviously, right? You have to.
Yeah, I do actually. Surprise.
Do you have them a late playoff exit, early playoff exit?
You know, there are 4 teams out in the West that I would branch together. The Clippers and the Jazz are branched in together for me. So people that follow basketball, that should imply that I'm pretty high on this team. If I'm putting them in the same category with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and the Clippers, should tell you how I feel about them.
I mean, yeah. I just didn't know how you felt about it.
I mean, hey, last year they were like the 4th or the 5th seed. The only thing they really lacked is scoring. They had been top 5 in defense for years. They went out and they traded for Mike Conley, signed Bojan Bogdanovic. They're not lacking in scoring. They're going to give you the points.
I'm a big fan of Donovan Mitchell, too.
Yeah, Mitchell, I mean, hey, he took a slight step up.
I said that. How would you really? Nobody was really talking about him this much this season.
I mean, that's because he really didn't. I mean, he improved the scoring a little bit.
Was it because of the team that they didn't talk about him?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. You know, like if you follow the NBA, yeah, people talked about him. But if you follow the media, well, you know there's only like 3 teams they talk about, so.
Let's see here. The Clippers now, welcome to the club. The Lakers and Golden State. Am I wrong? How close am I?
You might as well throw in the Knicks too, because New York media dysfunction. Yeah. I mean, they're the only teams that are ever talked about. Every NBA fan knows that the Jazz are someone to take serious. I mean, they just lack the scoring. They fixed that this year. I don't see how they're not one of the 3 favorites out in their conference.
Yeah. But, you know, I don't really listen to media. Personally, I don't they're dumb.
Yeah, I think Colin Cowherd's dumb too, and all the other weirdos out there.
And I respect that. Something I don't hate on your judgment or whatever.
Thank you.
I hope you feel the same.
I hate on everyone's. No, I'm just playing. I like to listen to other people, like in their perspectives. Anyway, Sacramento, baby. I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs, but this is gonna be a fun team to watch. Let's see, what did they do this offseason? They re-signed Harrison Barnes to a 4-year, I think $85 million contract. They brought in Trevor Ariza on a 2-year deal. They brought in Dwayne Dedman on a 3-year deal. Yeah. And that's... Oh, yeah, and they got Kyle Guy, who's going off right now in Summer League, playing pretty good. We'll see if he makes the roster.
I didn't even know if he was going off. I didn't even know he was going off.
Yeah, you know what's funny is he was a second-round pick by the Knicks, but the draft rights, because like they traded the pick, went to the Kings. So the Knicks just took another L. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the Sacramento Kings?
You know, they're just one of them teams. They're not the best team. They're not the worst team. They're just sitting there. This is one of the teams I like to think of, you know, one big free agency, or not big, yeah, I'm just making a point. One big free agency, and you know they're all of a sudden talked about. That's for a lot of teams in the NBA. That's what I respect about the NBA. There's some, like, one player in the NBA can make a team a play. I mean, not hell, even a championship finals team, like one decent player, like top 10, top 5. But even in the NFL, that doesn't really happen unless you get maybe a good quarterback. But who's willing to give that up most of these days? But yeah, it's just like I'm saying, it's just one of them teams. Yeah, you know, one big off season. They might be able to go somewhere with it. Right now, I'm not quite sure. I need to watch some games from them to see how they play and stuff.
Yeah, man, you're missing out. This is a really fun team to watch. Fast-paced. The Sacramento Kings, though, they got one of my favorite young players in the league, man. De'Aaron Fox, running the show. Swiper himself. I mean, he went from 7 points a game in his rookie. Yeah, I love him, man. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite young point guards. But he definitely stepped up his game and increased his shooting percentage. And I like that, you know, that's all he worked on basically in the offseason. I just like the construction of this team. You know, if you inserted a superstar player on this roster, I would think they're a top 4 team in the conference, maybe 5, based on how it is now. But I don't see them making the playoffs. I think they'll just miss out again. But the interesting thing about this roster is they could all grow together and hope that De'Aaron Fox turns into the next, like, John Wall, like some people projected. Or because they have so many young assets and their draft picks won't be too bad, they could make a trade for a superstar player.
That's to me the equivalent of a good offseason. That's what I'm saying. That could do something.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what I like about the Sacramento Kings right now, because you couldn't say that 3 seasons ago, 5 seasons ago about this team. They were one of the most dysfunctional organizations, and I don't think they get enough credit now over the last 2 years. They've really done a lot to get better and to kind of create this foundation. Like, they could use Harrison Barnes and one of their young players and another player in a pick. Boom, they could land a all-star quality player. You never know in this league. Even when you're not a free agent, you're a free agent.
That makes it where the whole thing about free agents don't want to go to a team they don't want to, and you don't have a choice to get traded.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great example, we just witnessed it in the finals, Toronto. You know, like, who wants to play in Toronto? It's in Canada. It ain't in the States. But you know what? Toronto went all in on them. On Kawhi Leonard, that being, in that 1 year, knowing he might not come back, and they won the chip. So I think that gives teams like Sacramento...
I hate to ask questions like this, because obviously it's not important right now, but what did they give up for him?
It was a 2-for-2 trade, so it was like Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green for DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl, who obviously they're not Kawhi or Danny Green, but they're still good players. You know, DeMar DeRozan's all-star quality still. Jakob, I mean, there's some potential there.
All right, thank you. I was just curious. So that was okay.
Yeah, and I really feel like that Kawhi Leonard trade gives teams like Sacramento, like, belief that, you know what, we could be that kind of team. I don't think it'll be like that scenario in the next 3 or 5 years because of how the West is now. But you never know, when all these teams who went all in for these players don't have those players anymore, they could be that next team that nobody knows about yet.
That would be cool.
I'm rooting for you, Sacramento. I'm not a fan. I'm not a bandwagon, but you got my support. Especially because you got De'Aaron Fox. Anyway, speaking of teams who do not have my support, bad for them, but you know what? They might mess around and do something. You never really know out there in the East. But they did sign they didn't get Julius Randle with hops, but they got Julius Randle without hops by bringing him in, you know, 3-year deal. Of course, this team drafted RJ Barrett, number 3 overall. They gave players like Bobby Portis, Elfrid Payton, Taj Gibson, Wayne Ellington, and where's he at? Reggie Bullock. They gave them basically all like 2-year deals. Some have options, some don't. But even though the Knicks didn't land that star player that they thought, or Zion, what do you think?
On the Knicks in general?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not a bad team.
They're really not, to tell you the truth.
You know, because of all the things, like I say, we'll be talking about this a lot there. Because of all the pickups and the free agency and stuff, that doesn't help them chances of being in the playoffs and stuff. But with the right move, they could be deadly. That Kawhi would have been good, but we all knew that probably wasn't really going to happen. I think that was pretty clear. But they even have a decent bench. It's all about. I think that's a team that needs a big player. We're not even, but you know, like I don't know how you if you would consider any of them like a true leader on their roster, but a top 10, top 15 player, or another one. They have a really good roster, and I feel like they ain't gonna make the playoffs because they just need players, man. They need or not even players. They need a big player.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I did say yesterday like they'll mess around and get the 8 seed, and I'm not gonna rule it out completely. But eventually, one of those 3 teams that I talked about, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, one of those teams got to get it. So the Knicks, I'm just gonna say they might not get it, but it will be an interesting season.
Oh, it's possible though. It's possible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I like the young talent on this team too. Like I've been keeping up with them in summer league. They look fun. They look like a fun group of players. I like that they brought in a lot of veterans. They missed out on all the star players, but they brought in a lot of like veteran players that could complement and mentor the young guys. So it wasn't a terrible offseason. I just think personally, this is my take, New York Knicks fans have their expectations way too high because of all of the delusion over the past 30 years.
Damn, you go back that far?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't been shit since the 90s, to tell you the truth. When they had Patrick Ewing and John Starks, they haven't really been shit, and this is the result of it. They have their expectations so high because they're living back in that era. Oh, we're going to get KD, Kyrie, Zion. We're going to be back.
Okay, that could have happened.
It could have, but
honestly,
it didn't.
Even I'll say that could have happened. And you know me, so you know how I wouldn't be biased about that in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it credit. It could have happened, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. It didn't.
Yep, exactly. And I don't blame you for saying that at all.
I mean,
to say that, you know?
every year, like when LeBron was a free agent in 2014, oh, we're gonna get him. The Knicks are gonna be back. You know?
No way. Did they say that? That was before I started watching.
Every year, man. Whoever the big free agent is, they're just like, oh, we're gonna get him. And every Knicks fan ain't like this, obviously, but I think the embodiment of their fan base is like that. I mean, every big free agents, they think they're going to get him. Speaking of every team who thinks they're going to get the free agents or whatever, I'm just kidding.
Oh, God, don't do it.
Not
Don't do it!
Let's talk about the other LA team, the Los Angeles Lakers. That purple and gold, baby. I'm just going to hit on the highlights. They finally made the Anthony Davis trade. They signed DeMarcus Cousins for a 1-year deal. Let's see, they brought back Rajon Rondo, JaVale McGee, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They brought in Danny Green on a 2-year, $30 million contract. And let's see, what else did they do? Most importantly, though, they got Jarrett Dudley. 1 year, $2 million. He's not a Dudley boy, so it's not going to be any Devon get the table. But it's going to be LeBron. Give me a game winner. So, Mr. Laker fan, tell me your thoughts on...
Hey, you don't have to say it like that.
Or LeBron fan. Which one do you want me to say?
Alright, shut up. Keep going.
Or Stan. What do you want me to say? I'm kidding. Either way, what are your thoughts on the Lakers?
I mean, it's pretty damn clear, you know, they upgraded a lot, actually. They upgraded a lot, you know, that DeMarcus Cousins, I didn't even see that one, honestly. You might have, you know, because you think about stuff like that. I didn't see that happening. You know, I should have, but I didn't see it. I did know that if anybody like that would be signed to the Lakers, it was going to be that damn obvious 1-year deal, which I'm not a big fan of those, personally. But I understand why teams do it and why players want it. They got what they wanted. What was the main thing they were preaching when going into the offseason? And that was they wanted shooters. And they got some shooters. They got a little bit of defense. This could be a fun team to watch, man. The same thing for the whole Paul George Leonard thing. When one takes a break, you have another force on the floor, on the court, you know? So, I mean, like I said, can't really get too happy about it yet, because what does one of them players have a history of? Injury. So until we see him play a season, I don't, you know, that's how I am personally. But I just want to see him play a season before, you know what I'm saying? Or at least be able to stay on the court for a long time.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And keeping Brandon Ingram was one of the biggest things they could have done out of everything, honestly. I see a good future for him. Kyle Kuzma, Kyle Kuzma. I didn't say that.
There you go. I gave you a chance.
I'm playing games, not I get in the moment. You already knew what I was talking about, though. I felt like.
Yeah, I knew. You just said the wrong name. It's cool. I didn't want to do you like that, but the Lakers. Of course, this is the team that the media spends all their time on. Because it's pretty obvious, best player plays for that team. But without going too super in-depth, because if you want to, you can just watch 3 hours of Skip and Shannon, because they spend 2 hours and 59 minutes talking about them. Or, I got you one even better, you can watch it at 12 o'clock. Colin Cowherd's a little bit more generous. He has 3 hours, but he'll talk about them for 2. Because he's got some NFL stuff he's got to hit on.
Yeah. I was about to say, he's a little bit more nicer.
And with First Take, you know, they'll leave a 15-minute window to talk about the Knicks. But other than that, you know, it's pro-Laker. But over here, you know, we try to keep it as even as possible. Now, I like what they did. People, you know, are trying to give them an L because they didn't get Kawhi. I give them a W. They filled out their roster. And they fixed...
you think of it the same way I do.
Or you think of it the same way I do.
Oh! Maybe we think about it just the same way.
That could be a possibility. Getting DeMarcus Cousins I thought was huge, but I hate to break it to everyone. If you're expecting DeMarcus Cousins to be a top 5 center like he was a couple of years ago, it don't work like that. He's going to have to rehab properly and not play hurt. Or like an older man. So we'll see how his official rehab goes. they did address shooting. I'm interested to see the starting lineup. I know everyone's like going, nuts because LeBron's listed as a point guard. He basically is a point guard. He has the ball all the time.
You also wanted that though. You were.
I wanted LeBron at point guard, but I need him to be aggressive. I don't need him driving to the lane and kicking out the shooters. I know that's their job, but when the game's on the line, let him take over, man. Don't be trying to, get bailed out by Avery Bradley.
Oh, that's great. Alright.
Now this is the question everybody came here for, so let's just go ahead, get it out of the way. What is this team's ceiling?
That is a seam ceiling. Alright, Aaron. So probably either champ, or not my bad. Either late playoffs or I don't know. See that's hard. I mean, obviously, with if the team plays well, you got to say either conference finals or finals. I mean, hell, maybe even a second round loss. That happens. That wouldn't be, But something you have said is if you want to win a championship this year to do it, you got KD hurt and stuff like that. So that brings up the question on is this an L? Is this an L if they don't get there? So that's up to you. I'm gonna let you answer that. Because I know how some people think about it.
Well, is it an L if they don't win this season? I think it's an L if any team outside of Brooklyn doesn't win it this year, because when Kevin Durant comes back, it's going to be an even more interesting conversation about the league in general. All those big bad Brooklyn Nets just got KD back. Look out. A full season to rest. Fresh legs. So, yeah, it's an L if they don't win it, because other than the Clippers, the Jazz, and another team I'll talk about later, they are in a great position to win it. They do have a couple of disadvantages. New coach, new assistants. Have some of these players played together? Yes, but they all haven't played together. What's going to be your late game lineup? What's going to be your starting lineup? What's going to be your small ball lineup? We don't know those questions. We don't know the answers to those questions yet. So my ceiling for them, I'll give them just a very vague answer like I did for the Clippers and the Jazz. Potential conference finals team. But that's about all I can give them. I'm not willing to say championship. I know them and the Clippers have the best odds, but, it's a long season.
Very long season, and you know what injuries can do to a team.
Yes, sir.
Or we do. It's from multiple sports, actually.
Unfortunately. All right, that's enough about.
I hate that.
That's enough about the Lakers. Speaking of an organization that had Magic, let's talk about the Orlando Magic, who brought back Nikola Vucevic on a 4-year deal, which I thought was good. They kept their all-star player. They re-signed Terrence Ross, and they brought in Al-Farouq Aminu on a 3-year, $29 million deal, and that's about it. Not really the most exciting free agency, but they kept the core together. So how do you feel about the surprise playoff team from last year?
Well, they're not. I don't think they're going back to the playoffs again. That's a fair statement.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. Landscape's changed.
That's just how I am. Give me a second. I'm always been a big free agency person. I like to see teams do good in free agency. And other than, like you said, keeping that core together, they really didn't sign anybody big. So that sucks for them, you know.
Yeah, it does suck, you know, but they could make a trade for a certain player in a Western Conference team that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I mean, like I said, not a very exciting free agency process, but you never know. I mean, they may or may not make the playoffs. That's all I'll say. They were the 7th seed last year, barely. So I think they'll probably barely miss the playoffs. But I like that as a team, you know, a team that had just been terrible after Dwight Howard left, they finally got a taste of the playoffs, and I think it helped all the young guys grow. So to their credit, blessing in disguise from last year.
I like the way you think of it, dude.
Yeah, I don't have a segue with this one, but we're going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks, man. They re-signed Kristaps Porzingis, or gave him a 5-year extension, I should say. Let's say they re-signed Dwight Powell. They brought in Seth Curry as well on a 4-year deal. They brought in everyone's favorite, well, second favorite now, I guess, if Taco Fall is going to be the next thing, Boban Marjanovic. They brought in DeLon Wright as well on a 3-year deal. And that's about it for the Dallas Mavericks. So your thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks?
This is another team that I need to look into more. Because honestly, that's the team that I haven't even like semi looked into. Maybe if you had some stuff you could tell me about them that I need to know for my future research.
Well, Kristaps prior to the injury was a god. That's basically what I could say. He's just a fun player to watch. 7'3", can shoot the 3, block shots pretty well. Luka, of course, we all know, won Rookie of the Year. They have an interesting team. It looks like they're going to build around Kristaps and Luka, which for a younger team, you know, absolutely. I don't blame them for going that route. And maybe in a few years, like we said, when all these players and all these teams, you know, are dismantled, probably, maybe they're the team similar to Sacramento that could be next. Maybe they make a trade for a star player. You never know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Speaking of stars, yeah, man, they're a fun team. All these teams, except for maybe the Hornets, I guess. Even the Hornets will be fun to watch. So let me not bash on them too much. But the Brooklyn Nets, man, we all know what they did, but I'll break it down a little bit. They brought in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on 4-year deals. A little less than the max because they brought in DeAndre Jordan on a 4-year, $40 million deal. They made a trade to acquire Taurean Prince. They signed veterans Garrett Temple and Wilson Chandler. And that's about it. Thoughts on this Brooklyn Nets team?
Well, you can't really. If they do lose, I'm not going to blame it on them. I'm not going to say it was an F for them because one of those good players that they got is going to be injured that season.
Yep, Kevin Durant.
This is going to be. I know he's had multiple chances, but this is going to be a good test on Kyrie to see if he can lead a team when a team needs to be led. This is going to answer some questions about Kyrie, like is he a good teammate, is he anything A, B, C, or D, all above, you know? You're going to see me. I'm going to talk to you a lot about it during this NBA season, about that team. Especially about Kyrie, because, I mean, you can even answer it right now if you want to. I'll have some more later. But do you like, agree with all the stuff that they say about him, like not being a team player and stuff like that, or no? Do you just blow it? Do you just smoke?
It's kind of similar to the slander of like Westbrook and a lot of other guards.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like if you think about it, I mean, Kyrie entered an awkward situation. I'm not justifying anything that happened with him that involved him, but he was just in a very awkward situation. You're going to a team that just paid Gordon Hayward. They just, you know, had Isaiah Thomas play the year of his life. and finished 5th in MVP voting. You don't fit the timeline with all these young players like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. I mean, you're just thrown into this situation, and you're asking Brad Stevens to make it all work somehow. Kyrie is a ball-dominant player. They knew that when they made the trade, and it just didn't work out. You know, it's pretty simple. I think the media likes to blow stuff up for their views and their clicks. I don't think Kyrie's a bad leader. I think he's a great teammate. As a leader, to be determined. I think that's fair to say, but as a leader on the court, he is that, because he's hit some big shots and made big plays at the highest of levels. But you know, I will say the criticism isn't completely unfair. I just feel like, you know, you can't just blame one person for everything, because you got to look at the situation. All situations aren't created equal or alike.
Yeah.
But I am excited about this team. You know, year one it will be interesting to see how they are without Kevin Durant and with Kyrie in the place of D'Angelo Russell. In terms of a ceiling, what's up? Yeah, go ahead. What's up?
Bad. Sorry to cut you off like that. Okay.
You're good. What's up?
Obviously, that yes, it's probably the answer. But I saw some smoke on Facebook. I was trying to. It was on a comment section, okay, and it was like, do you think that Kyrie even signed knowing that KD was going to go there too? And it said that he was talking. It was like all like this conspiracy theory thing, talking about how there's going to be drama now because Kyrie didn't know or Katie didn't know that the other one was going to be with the other. You feel me?
Yeah.
What do you think it was?
I mean, my simple answer for now would be we'll see on the court how it plays out. I mean, will there be tension? Will there be arguments? What stories are we supposed to believe?
I feel like all Kyrie wants is his own team. And I know that's bad to say, but that's what it feels like, you know?
Yeah, it kind of feels like the Jimmy Butler situation in a way. But I mean, you know, Kyrie and Kevin Durant, from what we know, are good friends. So maybe he already knew that Kevin Durant was going to make the announcement, but it was his job not to get it out there. You know, it's like, let's say me and you have this incredible opportunity. You already know about it, and you're going to announce it at a certain time. And I've already, like, made my announcement on it, but you're supposed to tell me, like, hey, make sure, like, you don't tell anyone that I'm taking the same offer as well. And I'm like, all right. And then when you take it, it's a surprise to everyone except me, because I already knew.
All right, bet. All right, bet.
Basically. But in terms of a ceiling for this team, year one, it could be conference finals, but I think I'll say second round exit because they don't have Kevin Durant. But I really like this team. They're deep, and they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. But we're going to go ahead and get to the next team, try to speed it up a little bit. The Denver Nuggets, man. Basically what they did, they made a trade to get Jeremy Grant, and that's really about it. You know, they kept their core, but they did draft Bol Bol in the second round, which is a steal. And then Michael Porter Jr. to be determined on what happens with him. But yeah, that's the Denver Nuggets.
All right. I was pickaxing him. Alright, brother. Denver's trash, by the way, baby.
Oh, that's tough, man.
I'm just kidding. I know, real talk though. What are we talking about?
The Denver Nuggets, like, all they really did was they drafted Bol Bol in the second round, which was a steal, and then traded for Jeremy Grant, and we'll see what Michael Porter's future looks like, but the team basically stayed the same, in other words. I do. I mean, I'd love to see him play, but we ain't there yet.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on this Denver team? I mean, they basically stayed the same, but they were a really good team last year. So how do you feel about them?
You said I mean, they pretty much stayed the same, correct?
Yeah, basically they stayed the same.
Um, how do you feel about maybe if they got a star, that they would just go over the top, or do you think that would break them?
You see,
Mess up what they're trying to do.
Denver's an interesting one because Nikola Jokic to me is a star, and I think he is the most, other than Karl Anthony Towns.
No hate towards them saying that, by the way.
Yeah, and other than Karl Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid, like you can make the argument maybe Nikola Jokic is the best center in all of basketball. I mean, he's the best passing big man that we got in the league, and I wish you would take
big man, or how would you rather? Do you hate on a center that would you rather have a center that can defend or a center that can shoot?
Well, he can do both, so I'd rather have him.
Okay.
I don't have to worry about when Nikola Jokic. No offense to Joel Embiid, because he is one of the most talented guys in the league when he's healthy. I don't have to worry about this guy and his health status. And unlike Karl Anthony Towns, with Jokic, I don't have to worry about lack of effort being put in by Karl Anthony Towns, because Jokic he's the complete package. Can shoot, can pass, can defend, can rebound. He's the best playmaker at his position. Not really a whole lot for me to worry about with him.
JJ, with all this NBA knowledge that you have, it kind of wants me to cry, because like you're growing up just so fast. I don't know what to do.
I hope I can say that about you someday, and I feel like it's coming.
I don't do this.
But Denver's an interesting one in terms of ceiling and where you place them. Because they were the 2 seed last year. They went and played in 2 game 7s. They were the 2nd seed last year. And they went and played in 2 game 7s in the playoffs. One against San Antonio, the other against Portland. This was a young team that we all talked about, that we were kind of scared for them because they had no playoff experience. They went out there and they played big in the moments, and I think it helped them. Now, with that being said, I think they are either a 2nd round exit or a conference final. I'm going to put them up there with Utah and all the other teams, Lakers, Clippers.
You see what I'm saying, JJ? These teams are just getting so good. Anybody can win anything at this point.
Yep, I mean, it's unpredictable. It's a wild season. They call it the Wild Wild West for a reason. They're an interesting, bunch over there in the West. Speaking of an interesting bunch, the Indiana Pacers, man, they did a sign and trade to acquire Malcolm Brogdon. Let's see, they brought in Jeremy Lamb on a 3-year deal. They did a trade to get TJ Warren from the Suns for basically nothing. And they brought in TJ McConnell to be their backup point guard. So this Pacers team, low-key team that made some savvy pickups.
Okay.
So how do you feel about the Pacers, man?
The Pacers?
Yeah, how do you feel about them Pacers? The 5th seed, I think. They faced Boston, but they got made light work of.
You're right. My bad. I forget about stuff like that. If they make it, then it ain't gonna be no 5th seed. Probably a good, maybe like the 7th or something like that. Or like deeper in, I don't know how you feel about that statement, but I can see it. But like I said, the teams are getting better today, and I love to see it. You don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I feel you. I really like this team. I think the Malcolm Brogdon signing is probably going to go down as one of the most underrated pickups of the offseason. Kind of like how Brook Lopez was last season for Milwaukee, which is ironic because they were both on the same team last year. They did lose Thaddeus Young, but they brought in T.J. Warren, so it's not really much of a loss there. They brought in Jeremy Lamb for more shooting, and I'm gonna say, I have to think about the landscape real quick. I'm gonna say they could get possibly the 5th or 6th seed, because I'm just looking out there, and we'll have to see how Victor Oladipo rehabs and how he comes back, but he's already running and playing scrimmage, so it looks like he'll be fine to go. But they're well coached, they play hard, and the organization's ran, pretty well these days. So, you know what? I'll give them a chance. 5th seed, maybe the 6th seed. But I think they're either going to be a first-round exit or second-round exit, because, the East is top-heavy. If they run into one of those teams, it's a wrap.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to the Pacers, man. I really liked what they did. Another exciting team, the New Orleans Pelicans, man. Basically, you can just put their whole roster on here, because there's a lot of stuff that changed. I mean, they added, they traded Anthony Davis, got Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart. Of course, they drafted Zion at number 1, or Julius Randle with hops. Let's see, they got J.J. Redick on a 2-year deal for $26 million. They brought in Derek Favors on a 1-year deal. They drafted Jackson Hayes at number 8 overall. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker at number 17. He has been balling at Summer League. Another one of those players who has taken advantage of his opportunities.
Yes, sir. You could take advantage of me.
Alright, Halsey. So, tell me about the Pelicans.
Yeah, but let's just say that they're a really nice team now. They got Zion. They got this stuff from the Lakers, the purple from the Lakers. Lonzo, you're gonna see a lot of stuff from Lonzo. Lonzo, I feel like had an opportunity to do really good as soon as he got a shooting down. He's gonna end up getting a shooting down, I believe. That's gonna happen. Obviously there's situations where it doesn't happen for certain players, but I mean, how could you just know that you're in the NBA and like some of the people worked on you for having a bad shot? Like, I would work on that. I don't know about you, JJ. I would. And,
yeah, I mean, you're in a shooting league. If you can't shoot, you're useless, basically.
Yeah.
Unless you're a big guy.
Yeah, if you're 7'5", 7 foot, you can do what you want.
I really like this team. They're different. It's going to be interesting to see how they all gel together, because they're kind of in that territory with the Lakers, who have a different roster. Yes, they kept some of the same players. Same thing here with the Pelicans. They kept Drew Holiday. He's still there. They still got, Etwan Moore. They re-signed Jahlil Okafor. So they got a couple of players that are still here, but they're a completely different team. And it's going to be interesting to see how they gel. Now, my question that I was going to ask you about the Grizzlies that I saved for this, who do you think right now, gut feeling, not knowing anything about projections of their careers, who's going to have the better career, Zion Williamson or Ja Morant?
Oh, probably Zion, man. As long as he don't let it get to his head, and he stays healthy, he doesn't let the fame get to him. He has the opportunity to, hands down. Maybe work on a couple of his flaws, but probably Zion's the safest bet, I could say.
Dang, you sounded pretty unanimous on that one. Hands down.
Wow, I'm just kidding. Well, I was just saying. What do you think?
I think it's a lot closer than people think. I know, listen, I'm not going to take the little boo-hoo knee injury that he had in Summer League serious, because I would advise him to sit too for the whole summer league. That's not important for him. He's the #1 pick. He's gonna make the team. I mean, it's not important. So, career projection wise, I mean, it's hard not to say that they're both neck and neck. I don't think it's unanimous. Zion's got all the hype in the world. He's either gonna be the guy that lives up to the hype or the guy that doesn't. I don't think there's a middle ground because of how overhyped he's been up to this point. Ja Morant, no one's really talking about him as much, but they talk about him. He's playing in a quiet city. He's going to be able to craft a good career. He has the jump shot. He has the defense, the explosiveness. Zion's definitely got the defense and the explosiveness. No one questions that at all. But that jump shot I'm a little worried about. He's got a standing lefty. And we saw Mitchell Robinson full sprint and block his shit. So I'm just a little worried. You can't dunk forever.
I don't like, dude. Oh, his jump shot is horrible, dude.
You can't dunk forever.
Like 3 times.
Yeah, and he's a 6'7" forward, and he's playing power forward. And like I said, you can't dunk forever. There's gonna be a point where you lose your athleticism. Ask Vince Carter, ask Dwight Howard, ask all the flashy dunkers.
I hate to make this reference, but why do you think players in the NFL can play when they're old? Is because they might lose their speed and stuff, but they have technique.
They have technique.
Is what gets them to.
They don't just, have God-given ability. Some receivers, we've seen it with Larry Fitzgerald. The reason he's still playing is because he's been solid in the slot. Has he been Antonio Brown or Julian Edelman? No, but he's been good in the slot, which is why he's still here.
Yeah. And your second sponsor, Wendy's. Come get your spicy chicken sandwich.
When in doubt, get the spicy nuggets with honey mustard. But
you get what I'm saying, buddy.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I just want people to know I'm not hating on Zion Williamson, okay? But let's just be serious with ourselves here. How many the next LeBrons have we heard since LeBron got drafted?
I don't know.
I mean, Jabari Parker, Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Bennett, Ben Simmons.
Can I take a tinkle break?
You better get a bottle and mute your mic.
I was going to mute the mic, and then I was going to let you maybe talk about then something that you need to.
What would I be telling them?
I don't know, just, like, I don't know, like that bitch named Becky, fucking nasty bitch, that one?
I
tell her about
don't know who you're talking about.
I met a bitch named Becky. She liked to talk real sexy, fucking nasty bitch. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what you're saying.
Oh, that's just on TikTok, dude.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm not hip. I don't use TikTok.
It wasn't me, bro. It's my cousin. Okay.
Alright, I'm not hip. I don't use TikTok. I don't have an Instagram. Well, I did for 12 seconds, but that's about it. I'm not hip.
Same, bro. I'm same.
I'm old. I use Facebook.
But we use it for young stuff, though.
Yeah, we like post memes and talk about sports. It's like literally the best thing ever. But this Pelicans team will be very interesting. I'm not gonna touch on Zion and Ja Morant. We'll just see.
Alright, I'm gonna use my restroom break real quick, okay?
Alright, and go ahead and do that, I guess. Alright, so when he gets back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk about the Detroit Pistons, and we'll try to work our way through this as swiftly as possible. We got the Pistons, Raptors, Rockets, Spurs, Suns, Thunder, Timberwolves, Trailblazers, and Warriors. So we got like 9-10 teams left. Ain't no big deal. We'll cruise through let's see here. So yeah, the Pelicans, as you guys can see, they added a lot of different players. We already talked about it really, but to refresh, they've added a lot of players via the draft and free agency. You know, a lot of people early on in this process was talking down on the Pelicans, like, no, nobody wants to play for New Orleans, and Zion should go back to Duke, and you know, that's all we heard from the media. But New Orleans turned out just fine because they were able to draw J.J. Redick here. They were able to bring in Derek Favors on a flyer 1-year deal. You know, they were able to re-sign Okafor. They kept a couple of their core pieces, but they really built this team through the Anthony Davis trade and the draft, and they brought in a couple of savvy free agents. And you know, for teams out there like the Knicks and the Hornets who suffer through their own scrutiny, I mean, this is what you could do to fix your problems. Have a great draft, bring in savvy free agents, and trade off of players. Don't be afraid to trade players. You know, they leave your organization, they tell you it's a business, you trade their ass, tell them it's a business. Pretty simple concept. But when Aaron gets back, we will talk about these Detroit Pistons, and we're going to try to fly through this as quick as we can, because I'm already losing breath. I'm getting tired just talking, spitting facts. So yeah, we'll see when he gets back. I'm gonna get on my phone real quick, actually, see if anything's happening in the world. I hate when, I hate autocorrect. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'm back.
Alright, welcome back. I was just talking shit on you while you were gone. You can go back and watch it in the live stream. Nah, I'm just playing.
You would do it as a joke. That's what I thought you would mean.
Yeah, if I were to do it, yeah, it would be totally in the joking context. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next team. The Detroit Pistons, man. I mean, to a 2-year deal. They brought in Markieff Morris again, who used to play for this team, on a 2-year deal as well. And they drafted Sekou Doumbia with the 15th pick, the French player over there from France, and an intriguing prospect. And that's really about it for this team. So how do you feel about them Detroit Pistons?
Trash, dude.
Yeah, I mean, they did, you know, they were a 500 team last year that barely made the playoffs.
No, I mean, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year.
I don't either.
Because the team has to move up, you know?
Unless they trade for that one dude. I
haven't realized by now, when I just say trash, I'm typically messing around. I'll just say trash is funny. He'll say a really good team, and I'll be like, trash. That's just how I am.
Yeah, he says it as a joke. I just kind of add on for the joke purpose. But yeah, I don't think this is gonna.
But
I don't think they're either.
I'd say it's a lot, actually. One good free agency could help them out a lot, you know.
Yeah, I mean, not all hope is lost, though. You know, like I said, we'll talk about this team later. We're getting there. They're pretty close, but unless they trade for that dude on the Western Conference team, then maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But that's about it for the Pistons. Let's talk about the defending champs, man, Toronto. A really rough offseason, bittersweet. You know, they won the title, but they did lose the player that they traded for, which I'm sure the organization kind of expected that. And really all they did was they brought in Rondé Hollis-Jefferson and Stanley Johnson to 1-year deals, who, you know, they're both good defenders, not the greatest scorers or shooters, but they will fill in defensively because they got the offense. But that's really it, you know, for this team in terms of free agency. They kept the core, but they did lose Kawhi at the end of the day.
And they lost Danny Green.
Yeah, and Danny Green, my fault. I forgot. You know, that's what happens when you have That's what happens when you have a good game and then fade away in the finals. You get forgotten about. My fault, Danny.
You really... Wait, all jokes aside, you're probably messing around a little bit, but do you not like him?
No, I
Still
think he's. I think. I think he's a good player. I just, you know, the thing is like, I feel like some people. He's a great player. You know, if I had a championship team, I would want him. But I feel like people overhype his championship credentials because he hasn't really played a really good series in his championship tenures. Like he has that game, and it's typically a game 3 or a game 4 on the road or at home. But it's like that's it. He's not a consistent player, but he's a player you want to have on your championship team. If he were consistent, he wouldn't have bounced around the league.
Yeah. See, I forgot about it too until I was like, whoa, you're missing somebody, and I had to think about it.
It's alright, man. They got OG and Anunoby coming back from injury. They'll be alright. The next Kawhi.
Duh.
I mean, his name's OG.
The thing about Kawhi is, people didn't know Kawhi was going to be Kawhi until he became Kawhi. You get what I'm saying?
Same can be said about Giannis as well.
Yeah. That's just a little fun little thing.
Yeah, and what's funny is the Pacers traded George Hill. Or no, they traded for George Hill, but they gave up the 15th pick. That pick ended up being Kawhi. So that's just an interesting little piece of trivia. He could have been an Indiana Pacer. But
wow, and it ended up when it got traded too because he wasn't elected there.
Yeah, he'd have been like, get me out of here. I want to go to LA with everyone else, like everyone else.
I wouldn't want to. If I was a superstar, I wouldn't want to be in LA.
I'd want to be in Florida. No state tax. I get to keep my money.
I didn't even know that. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, no state tax. Keep my money, baby.
Oh, you trying to go to Florida then?
I mean, the cost of living's a little expensive compared to Georgia, but it's a good place. I actually came back from vacation. You knew that. They kind of knew that. But post Kawhi, post championship, it'll be interesting. They definitely can still be a playoff team. I wouldn't just like discredit them or throw them out of contention. But of course, losing Kawhi, it sucks. But maybe that opens up more opportunity and more shots for a guy like Pascal Siakam. And I don't think that's being talked about enough.
I like him.
Because, you know, with a lot of the talent moving west as well, and a lot of teams being formed there, duos and like great championship contending teams, Pascal could probably be an all-star this year. I don't think it's too crazy to think about. I mean, the window is going to open up for him, and he'll have more shots because Kawhi's not there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, I don't think they're a championship contender, but they're still going to be a playoff team that's going to be pesky and hard to beat.
They still got that defense.
And they still got one Finals MVP vote, Fred VanVleet, baby. That's all that matters. They got him.
I'm glad he got a vote.
Yeah, I am too, man, because I think he definitely deserved at least consideration. Not the award, but consideration. And I think it's a good nod to him that somebody gave him that recognition. But we have to move on. Speaking of recognition, let's talk about the Houston Rockets, because everyone recognizes that James Harden is the travel king himself with that double, triple, quadruple step back, baby. But this roster basically stayed the same. The only thing they added was Deonte Davis, which he cleared waivers because he got cut by the Hawks. This roster is the exact same, no changes. But if they trade for a certain superstar out west, which we'll get to in a little bit, you know, maybe, I don't know, be weird.
All right.
So yeah, tell me about the Houston Rockets, man. Your thoughts on...
They done pissed me off so many times. They've done had the opportunity. They could have been in the finals one time if it wasn't because of their horrible 3-point percentage shooting and an injury. Last season they just blew it. They could have knocked Golden State out if they played the cards right. And I'm sorry, Rockets fans, but y'all are fastly losing y'all's grip to even a chance to say that you got close to the finals.
Houston's in an interesting situation. The last few years now, they've blown all their opportunities. You know, they're the Rockets that can never launch off. They can never go anywhere. Unfortunately, I mean, as soon as you think they're a finals team, oh, if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, if we didn't miss 27 consecutive threes as a team, maybe, or I don't know. Oh, Kevin Durant's not playing. Boogie's been hurt. We've been dominating the boards. I don't know. Let's just come out here and play our brand and stop them from playing theirs. Game 6 elimination. In their house, in their building, on James Harden's watch. Which is unfortunate, you know. They just haven't been able to capitalize on the championship window. And I think they're another season away, Aaron, from pulling in Oklahoma City. And that's going to be my bold prediction. If they don't make it to the conference finals, they might blow it up. Because they're really not going to have a choice.
I still think they're going to somehow get traded. Somebody's going to end up getting traded.
Yeah, I mean, they could go that route too if they believe they can get over the hump, which they very well could. But I'm just saying, it feels like it's closing on them. I just feel like, you know, if they go through another year of this, of, you know, being oh so close, I think they'll just have to come to the realization. So it's going to be interesting. The ceiling, I guess, you could say conference finals, or second round elimination, or first round elimination. You never really know with this team, which kind of sucks if you're a fan of them. Or just a fan of James Harden's game and respect Chris Paul. I mean, it's just tough. You never know with these guys. But speaking of never know, nah, I'm just playing. That's not a segue. San Antonio, man. They re-signed Rudy Gay to a 2-year deal. They brought in DeMarre Carroll on, I believe, a 3-year deal. And in the draft, they got a steal at, like, in terms of, like, value, I should say. They got Keldon Johnson at pick 29. They drafted their own Luka Samanik at pick 19. A good 3-point shooter, and that's basically it for this roster. So what are your thoughts on those San Antonio Spurs?
What's there to say about that team? They really haven't had anything going for them for a second, you know? That they're not going to make the playoffs. They're just, you know, a team. I'm just trying to, you know, I'm trying to be generous somehow. Anything I could be generous about?
I mean, that's up to you and your perspective on the team.
They're trash. They're bum cheeks.
Is that your, are you kidding, or is that your actual opinion?
No, I'm just kidding a little bit.
A little bit, so they're kind of trash.
Just kind of.
Well, I'll be the guy that tells you what they got going for them. Only the most impressive playoff streak in NBA history, in the modern day NBA. You have to go back to the year before Tim Duncan was drafted.
What are you doing, baby girl?
To the last time they missed the playoffs. I mean, like, you gotta go back to when Tim Duncan wasn't even drafted. Or the year before, excuse me.
Chicken lasagna? That shit sounds fire. Bro, have you ever had chicken lasagna before?
Okay, so we go from the
the fuck you
broccoli
supposed to do there?
spurs to the chicken lasagna.
Alright, yeah, but the Spurs do like lasagna. It's been proven that the reason they kept the playoff streak long is because they like chicken in their lasagna.
Or maybe they just have a great coach and, you know, they don't rely on Greg Popovich. Man, yeah, you know what? Put some respect on his name, man. You know how many dynasties he's ended?
JJ, alright, quiet, alright, Kawhi.
You know how many dynasties that man has ended with his excellence? And unlike the New York Knicks, he ain't worried about if the free agents come. You want to know why? Because he knows how to draft, he knows how to put players in his system and make them flourish, and he knows how to build around his talent. And they draft well, they make trades. That's why they've been keeping this streak alive. And I don't see it changing just yet. I think they'll barely make the playoffs. But you know what? It's going to be close. They may just well be the 8th seed.
Hold it down. Don't hold it down. Just go like that.
So
yeah, Dick Dickovic is a really good coach.
Greg Popovich.
Oh, okay. Greg Popovich.
Greg Popovich, you know, way better than that Frank Vogel guy coaching LeBron.
Alright, I'm sorry.
Hey, man, y'all better put some respect on Pop, man. The best coach of this era.
Obviously, you know, I'm just playing, man.
I know, but, you know, unfortunately, there are people out there that might take you serious. And I don't need them getting the wrong impression. I think they're going to continue their playoff streak. I know you don't. That's fine. You know, whatever. A lot of people thought that last year. Somehow they weaseled their way in. Maybe they told the commissioner, you better put us in there or else. But they made it in. I think they'll do it again. But it's going to be tight. You know, it's going to be rough. Speaking of rough, let's look at this Phoenix Suns roster. Because they are rough.
I like it. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you like the Phoenix Suns. I don't.
Good save, dude.
I tell you what, man. I do like Ricky Rubio coming to this team. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna hate on it too much. He's a smart, savvy point guard, a good passer, good defender. Not the greatest shooter, but he works. He works the mid-range well.
That's a big loss for Utah Jazz.
Nah, they got Mike Conley. They got the upgraded version.
Big loss.
Ricky Rubio. The guy drafted 4 spots ahead of Steph Curry? I don't think so. Ricky Rubio. Mike Conley, baby. He's better. Mike Conley can shoot.
Yeah, Ricky can't, but he's a really good defender.
Conley's a better defender, too.
Do you think so?
I mean, it's a universal truth.
Look up the facts, bro.
Mike Conley, his worst three-point shooting season was in 2017. He shot 32%, which is 2% better than what Westbrook did this year. Ricky Rubio in 2014 shot 25.5%. That's only 25.5% better than Ben Simmons. Yes, Mike Conley's at least a solid mile ahead of Ricky Rubio. Rubio's a nice point guard. He's not a championship point guard. No disrespect, though. This team did trade for Dario Saric. You know, he's bounced around a little bit. I hate it for him. I think it's hurt his development a little bit. But he's okay. You know, he's fine. This team just brought back Kelly Oubre Jr. today on a 2-year deal. They got Mikal Bridges. He's still on the team. They drafted Cam Johnson at number 11 overall. He's a good shooter, but he wasn't projected to go until like the late 20s. And this team, you know, they needed a point guard. They ended up getting him, but they could have had a young point guard for way less money. But, you know, I don't hate on this team too much, but what are your thoughts on the Phoenix Suns?
I don't hate on them too much. You gotta give me some good teams, bro. Not a playoff team, bro. I'm tired of saying those words right there.
I mean, we're giving all 30 teams the attention they deserved. We're not just gonna talk about the Lakers for 2 hours. You can
Hey, I didn't say that.
You can watch ESPN's First Take if you want to see that.
Thank you for the credit. Thank you for telling me where to look at, dude.
No problem. I mean, they got some bad, trash opinions, but it's okay. I mean, so does every talk show. But this is a weird team. I mean, Booker and Aiden, if you're a fan of the Suns, there's something to be positive about. I think Rubio's a good complementary point guard to those two because he's a good playmaker for the team. I don't really like this roster a whole lot around them, but it could be worse. It could be the Charlotte Hornets, but it's not. So
hey, it looks like we're giving them a little bit more attention than they deserve.
We are. I mean, to the Suns' credit, I mean, their roster is better than the Hornets, but not by a whole lot. But you know what? Just keep, developing Booker and Aiden in terms of the future long term. Speaking of a team who we're not sure about their long-term future, let's talk about my Oklahoma City Thunder. I already made like a 25-minute video on it, so I'm not going to go super in-depth. But basically all you need to know is they traded Paul George to the Los Angeles Clippers because Paul George demanded a trade. The Thunder respected it, and didn't like put him on blast or get the information out there. They just respected him demanding it, so they kept it on the low. They went and got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a nice young point guard who contributed last year for the Clippers. Danilo Gallinari, who 20-point scorer, solid 3-point shooter, and like a bunch of picks. Like I think it's like 6 or 7 in total, but there's like 4 unprotected first-round picks, lottery protected from Miami, and then 2 pick swaps where Oklahoma City gets the better pick, or the better pick. So like if the Thunder get the 13th pick and the Clippers get the 20th, the Thunder get the 13th. And then basically the last big thing is Westbrook. Gonna get traded, I don't really blame him. But yeah, he's basically like demanded a trade. And this roster, they haven't really done anything. They drafted Darius Bazley at like the 23rd pick. I don't know much about him, but maybe he ends up being decent. But yeah, this team is basically hitting a hard reset button. So I'll let you go ahead. Your thoughts on Oklahoma City's situation?
Pretty much what you said. When Paul George went out, that was Westbrook's call to get out of there too. Sorry, baby. That's depressing.
Hey, man, it's all good. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, it's his team now, basically. We'll see what he's got.
Yeah.
He looked decent. He looked good last year. I ain't gonna say decent, but he was in a draft class that had Luka, Trae Young, and Colin Sexton, so he did get overshadowed. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's see. I kept referencing Westbrook. Obviously, there are a lot of teams that could trade for him.
That's fucked up, dude. I love you, dude.
Yeah, you just did something in Fortnite, which is why you are laughing.
Yeah. Alright, as long as you know I wasn't laughing at you. That's why I just was thinking myself at you.
Yeah, anyway, so there are a lot of teams that could trade for Westbrook. The Rockets, of course, the Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, potentially Detroit or Dallas. Never know, but those are the teams that have been linked to him. Miami seems to be the front runner, but they're being picky, like, oh, we'll take Westbrook, but you can't have Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero. So they're basically saying, you can't have our 2 most valuable assets. Then why should we do business with you? That's the way I think of it. And even if we just got one of those 2 players, I think it'd be okay, but whatever. Anyway,
Well, it's not like, it's like you're in a situation where you got to get him out. You're gonna have to take a bad deal most likely.
Yeah, true, but you know, he's also under contract for 3 seasons. We could sit it out till the last year. I know, obviously you're not going to. I know. Don't even say nothing. I know. It was a joke. I mean, yeah, technically, yeah, you would have to take a worser deal. But it's like, come on now. You know you're going to have to throw one of those two in there. You're not just going to get Westbrook for a bunch of expiring contracts. What the hell is Oklahoma City supposed to do with that? What are we trading him for? Cap relief? I mean, come on. Use your brain, Miami. Don't stop stiffing that shit. But, bottom line, I am going to defend Westbrook in this sense. I don't blame him for asking for a trade at all. I mean, the organization, they've stuck by him, you know, and whatnot, but they haven't built the team. They've had the player, like the superstar player, the co-star, but they haven't had the greatest team around those two players or those three players. You know, they have lacked depth for years. They run about 7 to 8 players deep every season, and that's really what's hindered their playoff chances. This narrative that people don't want to play with Westbrook, I think, is wild, because if that were the case, Paul George would have never re-signed. He would have just took that deal from the Lakers at the time. If the narrative wasn't true, Kevin Durant wouldn't have re-signed with the organization before he ended up leaving or whatever. So this narrative that people don't want to play with Westbrook, I disagree. You know, I just gave you 2 pretty massive examples that people want to play with him or whatever. And there's not a player I can think of. I'll bias out of the, you know, the clear here. But there's not a single player I can think of that's going to play harder than him on every single night, every single possession. If you try to tell him to take load management, I think he'll laugh at you. I think he's that kind of player. And whoever gets him, you know, he is going to be 30. And yes, of course, 30 is that magic number. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be 30. It is that magic number for athletic point guards and athletic-based players starting to decline a little bit. Westbrook's been averaging a triple-double for 3 seasons. I know that's stat watching, but Russell Westbrook's been playing hard for the last 3 seasons, and he really hasn't shown signs of slowing down. His shooting percentages aren't great at all, trust me. That's one of my biggest complaints about Russ. But in terms of a player, he just hasn't shown me signs of him slowing down. So his value is still there. It's not the greatest, but it's still there. It's good enough to get a young asset and maybe a draft pick and expiring deals. Like, come on, Miami, stop sorting that damn coat. Give us Tyler Herro. You can keep Bam Adebayo. We got Steven Adams. But anyway, we're going to move on, though. We got the Minnesota Timberwolves, who should probably move on from Andrew Wiggins' disgusting contract. But good luck finding a trade for that. This team is basically Karl Anthony Towns, and we'll see how the rest of the core plays together. That's basically their team. They did draft Jarrett Culver at number 6 overall, which I thought was a good draft pick. They brought in Noah Vonleh, Shabazz Napier, and Jordan Bell on some 1-year deals, along with Jake Layman on a 3-year deal from the Portland Trailblazers. Other than that, that's really it for this team. That's all they really did. So yeah, your thoughts on the Minnesota Timberwolves?
They're just, you know, I remember back when they used to be really good. Actually, something you don't even know about me, I don't think, JJ. That was the first ever team that I've watched in basketball.
I thought it was the Miami Heat.
No, I was about to, I was about to fix myself. After I took my first initial break, Miami Heat was the first, and then I ended up just deciding that I wasn't going to watch it. You know how that goes.
I'm boycotting the NBA. You didn't say that. I was just saying that as a joke.
Yeah, I know. But so that ended up happening, you know. But that's a little fact I wanted to put out there. After I came back that last time, before I took the last break, before I am here now, I remember watching a couple of them games, and they were fun to watch.
Yeah, man. So why aren't you still a Timberwolves fan? They got Karl Anthony Towns, Big Cat Man.
I can't even think. They had you know, they had a really. I can't think of that player that was on there.
Was it recent?
Nah, it was a couple of years, about 5 years ago.
Kevin Love.
You know, I'll find it out and I'll text you. Okay. But yeah, I just want to go to other. Okay.
All right, so from one former Minnesota Timberwolves fan to one that, you know, doesn't even care for him, but you know, I like Karl Anthony Towns a lot. I just talked about him in the whole Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid discussion. Karl Anthony Towns, you know, has had some incredible statistical seasons, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it's all empty calories because he's only made the playoffs once. The team around them sucks, but it's not like the worst supporting cast in the league either. You know, they had Jimmy Butler at one point, and what's funny is as soon as he got there, they made the playoffs. But because those two couldn't get along, they traded Jimmy Butler, and Karl Anthony Towns started to play better, but they haven't had any success with him. So I'm kind of worried for them in the future, like 3 to 5 years from now when Karl Anthony Towns' contract is up. But we'll just see how that team does. Monitor them, I guess. But they're not a playoff team. Alright, we only got a few more teams to do. We got 3, actually. So we're down to 3 more teams. The Portland Trailblazers. So they made a trade to get Hassan Whiteside and a 3-team deal. So they got Hassan Whiteside while Yusuf Nurkic is recovering from his nasty injury. They ended up trading for Kent Bazemore by getting rid of that Evan Turner contract. They re-signed my boy Rodney Hood. They brought in Mario Hezonja on a 1-year deal. They drafted Nasir Little at pick 25, which was arguably the steal of the first round. And that's about it for this team in terms of like big moves or whatever.
Trash.
Yeah, Portland is.
Yeah, we've been going for a long ass time.
I know. It's been forever. That's what happens, man, when you got like years of information to cover.
What team was it?
The Portland Trailblazers.
Okay, I really don't even know that much about them. That's another team.
Another team. Well, they were the what were they last year? Like the 3rd seed. And you know, they they beat Oklahoma City in the first round, you know, pretty convincingly too. Beat Denver, they were able to outlast them at 7 games. And then they ran into the brick wall. The Golden State Warriors lost in 4. Damian Lillard did get paid though. He got a 5-year extension, making some bank. But they're a weird team, man. You know, I think it was a couple years ago I said they were like the Kansas City Chiefs of the NBA. Like, they could fool you in the regular season, but in the playoffs, they're not the team you think they are. And I was really referring to the Alex Smith Kansas City Chiefs, hence why I said 2 years ago. You can pretty much apply the same law now based on what happened last year. But, you know, Damian Lillard and McCollum, they're a great duo. In the playoffs, this is the most success they've had. But we gotta chill on this. Damian Lillard's the 2nd best point guard in the league talk. Because he's not. I mean, let's just get real. He's not. One, like, playoff run doesn't make you the best or the second best. You got to do it over a period of time.
Yeah.
Because last time I checked, Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook did not retire. They're still in the league. Damian Lillard, you can keep your 4th place, which is fine because being in the top 5 discussion for any position is a good thing. But now we got 2 teams left. Let's talk about the defending Western Conference champs who everyone seems to be writing off, the Golden State Warriors. So, just when you thought they were going to get nothing for Kevin Durant, they do a sign-and trade to get D'Angelo Russell on this team for a 4-year, $117 million deal. They signed Willie Cauley-Stein to a 1-year, like, $2 million deal, which I think is another underrated signing of free agency. They brought back Kevon Looney. They ended up signing Alec Burks. And they traded for Amari Spellman, like we talked about with the Atlanta Hawks. But they did end up trading Andre Iguodala away, who is most likely going to get bought out. So we'll see how that goes for Golden State. But what are your thoughts on the defending Western Conference champs?
Yeah, they're gonna be right back. They're maybe not finals. I don't know what happened, but they're gonna be late in the playoffs for sure. I'm not gonna hate on that team until I have a reason to, or to not trust them anymore. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's just interesting because, you know, everyone's giving the proper attention, rightfully so, to the Lakers, the Clippers, the Jazz, the Nuggets, and I'm just trying to figure out, you know, did Golden State disappear? No, because they still got Steph. Clay's going to be out till probably the All-Star break, but the thing about Clay is, and the thing about the Warriors is, they just have to be good enough in the regular season to get in, because once this team is fully rested and at 100%, it's wide open. It's almost like the NBA playoffs is a different season, a different mode for these Warriors. Russell, it'll be interesting to see how he's used. Will he be the main ball handler and let Steph Curry come off screens and shoot like he did in the finals? I don't know. But I'm very excited to see what this team looks like, man, with D'Angelo Russell on it.
Yeah. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, because Russell's coming off a career season, so it'll definitely be a lot of fun to watch. Finally, the Washington Wizards. So we're not ending on the greatest note, but I went in 2K chronological order. So they did bring in Isaiah Thomas on a 1-year deal, who a few years ago was 5th in MVP voting. You know, he's still riding that one great season. At 9th overall, the Washington Wizards drafted Rui Hachimura from Gonzaga. He's actually been a solid player. Not a flashy guy, but just a, good solid basketball player. Let's see. They ended up extending Thomas Bryant for a 3-year deal. They brought in Jonathan Simmons on a 1-year deal from the Philadelphia 76ers. And they made a trade to get Davis Bertans from the Spurs. And that's about it for this team. John Wall is still out for a season, I think.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this team? John Wall is going to miss another season, but Isaiah Thomas, may create an opportunity for him.
Yeah, it's going to be... what's the name of this team that we speak of right now?
The Wizards of Washington. The Washington Wizards.
Washington or the Wizards. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool to have Wizards from Washington. They're really cool.
Yeah,
see,
mystical creatures.
Everything is not what it seems. Yeah,
They're better.
My God.
The Washington Wizards, fan. Here, let's talk about the team.
JJ, do you know about that, dude?
I don't think I'm aware, but
Place, bro.
Oh yeah, that weird show at Selena Gomez.
Yeah, all right, my bad. All right, keep it going.
Yeah, Justin Bieber's ex that he still cries over. Anyway, so let's focus on the Wizards.
Hold it down. Don't push it.
And
don't push it.
Isaiah Thomas is here. No John Wall, like we said, for the next upcoming season. Still recovering from like different surgeries and whatnot. So, how do you feel about this Wizards team, man?
The Wizards, they're trash. Pretty bad. They do. I could beat you with them, other than that, yeah.
I don't think so.
Alright, I'm about
I mean,
shoot that three, you know what I'm saying?
all I'm gonna say is the legal age for drinking is 21. You are not 21, so you need to get off that shit.
Yeah. Okay. I love you too, JJ. Go on.
Yeah, but this team is not good. They're mediocre. I think that's fair to say. Like, they're not good enough to tank, but they're not good enough to make the playoffs either. So,
Yeah.
that's basically where they are. Isaiah Thomas, we'll see if he can revive his one season of excellence. Rui Hachimura, we'll see what his ceiling is. I didn't really know much about him because I didn't watch a whole ton of college basketball. But we'll see what he's able to do. This team is just weird. You know, and we'll see how they do. Maybe they trade Bradley Beal, maybe they don't. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have successfully made it through the entire league, Aaron. We did it.
We'll get it there. We took that one.
We did it, guys.
Would you want me to do the exit out of this, and then we'll do it like...
Yeah, you do the exit. I'm gonna go shower and stuff after this.
Alright. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please like. If y'all have anything to say, comment, and we'll talk to y'all. Please like. Hit that subscribe button for both of the channels if you don't mind, you know. And, yeah. I hope you had fun.
Peace. Alright, I'm gonna go shower and stuff. Alright.